Hi, this is Angelo John Lewis for the Sacred Inclusion Network. And if you'd like to know more about us, please visit our website, sacredinclusion.com. Today, it's my enormous pleasure and honor to be interviewing Robert Schram. And it's dizzying to be able to tell you all the things that Robert is about. But, he has, like a lot of us that are in the public eye, he has like a kind of, what I call it, before he gets to the details, he tells you kind of what he's doing. And I want to read that. Robert Schram is an intuitive transition engineer with a passion to lower the illusionary boundaries in our mind so that we can unite towards a fairer, more loving, and compassionate world for all. He's an activist for humanity's phase shift to empower the momentum towards the new paradigm. So in terms of practical things that Robert is involved in, he's the co-founder of United Earth. He's the coordinator at the World Summit Movement, co-founder of Mother Ark, director of the Mother Earth Trust, and Island Innovation Ambassador and Climate Reality Leader. He is also a digital nomad, co-creating on a Synergy Hub network. It's an activist at HackHumanity. He's a host of Future Now Radio and promoter of Earth Dollar, which is a digital currency backed by the health of the planet. You may have seen the documentary film that he either produced or co-produced called The Great Pause, and I will include a lot of those links in the show notes. Robert, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Angelo. I'm very happy to be here and have a hopefully beautiful discussion or reflection about all kinds of things.
Yes. I want to share just a personal story of how we first met. Robert at the time was promoting, I believe, the World Summit Movement. And somehow or other, it's one of these things, you get an email, you see something and you sign up for it. And, sometimes you don't even think anything of it. But in any event, him and his colleague actually called me. This is like at least 4 or 5 years ago, I think. And we had a nice discussion, and that was my introduction to the this entity that you see in front of us.
Very good.
So, Robert, I consider you a spiritual being. So I wish you would start by giving us some sense of your origin story, especially as it relates to spirituality.
Yeah, thanks, Angelo. Yeah, it feels for me that I think mostly or most of the spiritual connections that I sense and feel, they started at my upbringing, my childhood. And I always start with explaining that I'm coming from a very big family. I grew up in the 60s and 70s.
What country, Robert? I don't.
In the Netherlands.
Yeah, Holland.
Yeah. Holland. I was born and raised in Rotterdam. And so I have 5 sisters and 4 brothers, and I'm somewhere in the middle. And for me, it was, I consider myself as quite lucky because I received a lot of love from my parents. I'm also, although they had their challenges, they truly loved each other a lot. And that sort of, for me, was also, maybe a form of spiritual enlightenment, or not enlightenment, but a spiritual experience to see that how deep connections and relationships can go. And I think being in this family, taking care of each other, was very important for me. So to be there, take care of each other unconditionally. And I felt this sense from child on that I felt this connection with the universe and nature. And I think I was about 11 years old that I already decided I would not buy a motor bike or a scooter because it was polluting
Wow.
And I don't know where that came from, but it was a sort of feeling this connection with the nature and the planet and humanity and the cosmos has always been there with me, and it never left me so far.
Yeah, I can see that. It's something about being in the middle of a big family, which is in itself is helpful, let's say. And as you know, everyone doesn't have such a loving family, and to have that as a background that informs your whole life. I mean, I can appreciate how that informed you.
Yeah, totally. Thanks. And like I said, I consider myself very lucky. And of course, also in a big family, there are lots of dynamics.
Yeah.
Specifically when the older children get into relationships and jobs, and so there are constantly changing dynamics. And I think for me, that was a very good way to be more appreciative, but also be able to accept changes more. And like you said, I am in the middle, so it always felt for me like it was very special to have that role within the family. I always like to make people feel better, or organize events and create a good mood for everyone.
Probably a natural conflict resolver.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's how I sense it. But also a lot of humor. We laughed a lot. Although at the dinner table, my father was very strict because
really at the dinner
with 10 children at the table, you cannot make jokes a lot because you'll be there for 2 hours. Nobody will eat their plate. So we finished our plates in quiet silence, and then we could make jokes. But it was fair. It was fair. Yeah.
So, Robert, now you're involved in all with these what I'll call Aquarian things. But I know at one point in your life, you had a more or less, well, I don't know this, but I'm sensing it was relatively conventional in that you had like a regular job. I believe you share with me that at one time you were a coordinator for a utility-oriented company. So I don't know the whole story, and I'm kind of interested because obviously you decided to make a shift in what you were doing in your life. And I wonder if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yes. I worked as a project coordinator for 30 years, and for me, the shift was always there. I worked freelance, so I did a lot of different projects, and I was, trying to, because it didn't really have my interest fully, because it is technology. I'm more interested in people and relationships and connections. It's nice to build things together with people, but it's not my passion. But again, it's my nature to coordinate, apparently.
Yeah.
So that felt for me like something. Okay, I could have a very good living with it. But still, when I was at companies doing projects, I always try to ask people philosophical questions and life questions, and to see where they were, instead of only focusing on the main goal and the planning and the targets and the finances and the budgets. I try to find the human factor, that synergy within the projects. And but it was a very conscious choice. I think it was always during my career in the back of my head to make a shift. Of course, when you have children, and I was there with a son that I wanted to support fully. So that means you need to have means, also be there as fully as possible in free time. And so my job allowed me to do this. But when I knew when I turned 40, I was already clear that when I'm 50, I will make the shift. And I will let go of my current job and focus on what I really love to do. and that's what I'm doing now. Like just said, coordinating, networking, weaving, connecting, and it's a beautiful playing field. It's my bliss at the moment. What I love to do most, with passion. And so and all my friends and family, they were a bit surprised when I did it, but I was sharing it for 10 years already. But nobody was really listening, apparently. So, and when I did it, they were like, what are you doing? The usual things. How can you quit this great job? And for me, it was crystal clear, and it was a very conscious choice. Yeah.
So I know at one point you shared in another conversation that that you had the unfortunate experience of having a death of a child, and I wonder if you could tell me how that impacted you.
I felt also, with my upbringing, I was quite. I still am, but I consider myself as a very positive, oriented person. So for me, it really felt, life couldn't be beautiful enough. It was all amazing, a chain of miracles. And when I was 23, we received a son, with my former girlfriend, my first serious relationship, and he had a heart condition, so he passed away after 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very intensive period, and although I thought I already knew or had a little understanding of how fragile and precious life was, this really, made a big mark, a big impression in my life. That I went through the loss and the grief, and then it sort of reinforced this feeling I already had, like, wow, this life is not, given to anyone. It's something that we should fully appreciate and embrace. And I think from that day on, I sort of was inviting this intensity into my life, because for me, it felt like, if we are here for a certain amount of time, and we can always elaborate on, former lifetimes or coming new lifetimes, but or energies in other forms. But for me, it feels like, if we are here, let's really, live it to the full, and also don't wait too long. I feel I didn't want to wait too long for doing the things I really wanted to do, but I did have the responsibility with my second son, and I must say, I did suppress a lot of this grief. It all came out when my second son was born 7 years later. All the grief also came out, and it deepened also the relationship with my second son in a way that I feel very lucky that we always have this very, very deep connection, and we have a lot of philosophical discussions. He's great.
Robert, I'm always curious as to the different I'll call them spiritual teachers that people have had. I know a little bit about your influences. I'm going to ask you about those, but maybe they're the same. I don't know. But I wonder if you could share a little bit about the people that I suppose most influence your I'll call it your spiritual perspective in your life.
Yeah, I think I don't feel I really followed a spiritual
it's more like influences.
Yeah, influence. Yeah, of course I met numerous spiritual people on my life journey, my path. So I think it's basically my inner compass that guides me to be in service of humanity, and to love, and to have compassion. So I did once follow a theosophical course with the Theosophical Society, which I found was very insightful, and that's a society that sort of is described as an unsectarian body of seekers after truth. They search for truth, and they want to promote a brotherhood and strive to serve humanity. So it's sort of about the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science.
Yeah, they're fascinating. If people don't know about them, I encourage you to go to Wikipedia and learn about them. They're not as prominent as they were, I think, probably like in the 40s or 50s or 60s. One of the things that they did at one point, and you probably know this, is that they thought they found a Messiah. And that was Krishnamurti, who said at the end of the day, "Look, I'm not interested in being a Messiah. Everybody needs to find their own way."
Yes. Yeah, but that's the thing. I'm open to it. I would love to receive all kinds of different forms of wisdom, but I'm not really fully attached to it. Like, oh, now we should take this or that as something that we,
I'm raising my hand because I'm
yes, yeah, and so I'm trying. I'm not, of course, we're all biased, but I'm trying to be as neutral as possible, so I can sort of have a hopefully clearer vision on things. Not stating that I have it, but I'm trying to be in this position. Yeah.
Well, if we forget the language of spiritual teachers, I know that you have several formative influences. One of which is Paul Hawken, mm-hmm. and the other is Barbara Marx Hubbard. So, can you tell me maybe what you've learned or how these individuals influenced your thinking?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think for me, it starts with.
You probably should tell people who Paul Hawken is and Barbara Marx Hubbard is.
Yeah. I think Paul Hawken is. He published a book in 2007 called "The Blessed Unrest," and basically the theme is about how the largest movement in the world came into being and why no one saw it coming. So he made visible, and that's why I wanted to start with it. He made visible that there are hundreds of thousands groups and organizations and platforms, all kinds of people that are from different ethnic backgrounds. They are already working on creating a better world in all kinds of. He described this as the largest movement on earth that has no name, no leader, no location, and they are basically invisible. They're not seen by the media. And that intrigued me. It was very inspiring to me because I feel intuitively that many people are doing their best to create a better world, but lots of those efforts are unseen or unheard. Maybe in the spirit of the best book ever written has maybe never been read. So and so that fascinated me because I already was playing with this thought: why don't we or aren't we able to organize all these energies that are going around? It felt as a coordinator being a coordinator from nature, or inspired by nature. It felt to me it didn't make a lot of sense that we were, reinventing the wheel over and over again. And seeing this potential made a huge impact on me. So I thank Paul Hawken for bringing that to the surface. And so it inspired me to go further. So not only recognize that this large movement exists, but how can we activate this movement in a way that it makes sense, or how can we support the process? So, and I think coordinating is one important aspect of it. Firstly, to make the energies visible, and then to see, okay, where can we let them flow in the best way? And we need a lot of collective wisdom for that, because thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, brilliant people, are working on this, and I would love to bring all these energies. Yeah,
that's
to thrive.
That's what you've been doing since I've known you. I just want to insert like a historical thing here. You know, a lot of this became concretized in print anyway, by a book that was very influential at the time called The Aquarian Conspiracy by Marilyn Ferguson. So at one time, maybe these groups and movements were been visible. Marilyn, in her sort of brilliant book, she said, well, this is going on here, this is going on here, this is going on here. Now, of course, what she didn't do, everyone has a role, is that she didn't talk about, well, what shall we do to, you know, to unite this energy? And, you know, another kind of historical thing that's more recent, that's between Robert and I, in the early days of the pandemic, our Sacred Inclusion Network, I invited a friend of mine, his name is his first name is David. He's a Unitarian, well, he's some sort of minister. He's also has a background in the business world. In any event, we did a exploration, that's what we call them in the network, on essentially this pandemic moment, what it means. And Robert showed up, probably sensing that this is another opportunity for for me to assist in the coordination of that which is trying to coordinate itself through us. So I'll throw that in there. And now I want to ask you about Barbara Marx Hubbard. I know very little about her. You know, I knew all these people. I knew of all these people at one point because I wrote a book called Notes for a New Age. And, you know, at that particular moment, I interviewed a lot of people. So but I never really got a sense as to who she was or what she contributed. And obviously she contributed something to your thinking. So I wonder if you could share that with us.
Yeah, I think Barbara.
Tell us about who she is, first of all.
Yeah. Barbara, she's not with us anymore, at least on this planet. She was a futurist, a thought leader, and she created the wheel of co-creation, where she basically came up with a concept that is based on whole systems designed worldview. And she used a tool or identified this worldview by creating 12 sectors. So we see a lens, we see society through the lens of 12 different sectors. And me, loving to make things visible and energies, was attracted by this immediately, because not only I had an interest in these 12 separate sectors, but I'm more interested in how they correlate with each other, how they interact with each other, how they influence each other. And so basically she came up with these 12 sectors, which I can name a few if it's helpful.
Just a few, otherwise we'll be
here
12 hours.
Okay, but yeah, okay. But you have arts, you have education, you have economics, and governance and healthcare, things like that. And of course, I think it's reasonably fair to say that economics and governance, they are heavily influencing sectors. Of those 12 that influence a lot of the others in the field. And yeah, how I sense it, how I feel it, is all these 12 sectors are equally important. And a lot of times, and I won't go too deep because maybe it will indeed take too long, the interview, but I often sense that people are referring to like technology is one sector that will save the day or be the solution, or education, or spirituality is also there. And I think they're all equally important. And all these sectors together, for me, that's the pathway for a solution. If we can have the capacity to reach the consciousness, how they, and of understanding how they interact with each other. And yeah, so, and I love that part. We did some variations on this wheel, but this was basically the most. Barbara Marx Hubbard also wrote a few books about conscious evolution. But this wheel was, for me, this visualization was very important and inspiring to me.
Yeah, I think one time we should just have a whole podcast about this conceptual framework and how you're operating it. But so maybe this is the first of many conversations. One of my exposures to you and your work was through this wonderful film that's available. I see a cat that's in the window there, wondering what's going on.
Yes.
At first, I didn't know what it was. I saw the shape, and then
it's feeding time.
Her head, yeah. Oh, it's feeding time.
It's feeding time, so they try to get in the house.
So I saw this wonderful film, and maybe it's a series of films, but it's called The Great Pause. And what's the best way to do this? I think for me, perhaps you should describe it, but more not so much describe it, but explain the sort of the concept of the great pause. What's the message that's in this film?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, well, of course, the world stopped with COVID, literally, and we took a large breather with a big impact. So it was sort of a specific momentum in our history that we had some time and space to think about whatever, not only how did this virus came to us, but also we saw some rapid changes happening, some shifts, some shocks. And I think it was very useful, or it felt useful to us to jump into that momentum and to see, okay, if we can make this large shifts, this paradigm shifts on its own, then why can we not give a different outlook and picture on new systems, new forms of society that are regenerative instead of the mainly degenerative systems we have now. And I think we wanted to bring people a vision and inspiration and hope that we can change rapidly in a positive way, not waiting for something like COVID or another natural disaster, but just do it because it makes sense. And so we made 3 short documentaries, like from 6 to 10 minutes. And it was really great to be able to specifically give younger generations a positive outlook and window that, yes, we do not all have to work 40 or 60 hours a week. We could, shift to a 20-hour work week. And we all need support on social levels, emotional levels, but also on economic levels. So we gave the outlook of why don't we couple a 20-hour work week with a form of basic services or income, basic needs, provide people with basic needs. So we hold space for each other and hold space for them. And that sort of was the idea to bring this outlook through the Great Pause videos.
Yeah, it's a brilliant series. I don't think I've seen all of them. I've seen at least 2 of them, but they're on the internet, and I'll post a link to them. I definitely highly recommend them.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and just to keep it briefly, part 2 was about why we cannot go back to normal, because the normal was basically, or is abnormal, if you see where it leads to. And it doesn't feel to me that I'm promoting doomsday scenarios. I don't see that. I see a lot of positive solutions that are out there and that we can implement. And we wanted to show which kinds of solutions. So I think in part 3, we came up with a whole bunch of transition tactics, stepping stones, how we could support or guide the process of humanity's phase shift, because we are in the midst of a phase shift. It's not fully visible yet to everyone, but that's how I feel it.
I feel the same way. And I notice I'm listening very carefully, and you use the word we. And I know that a lot of the work that you do is sort of collectively inspired or guided. So maybe you could say a little bit about that.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to, talk from the I when you express your personal emotions, your private feelings, because they are your emotions to hold. So what you feel and sense doesn't mean someone else feels the
Tell
same
me
way.
about how this relates to that particular project, the Great Pause, the we and the Great Pause. So I'm sort of interviewing you like you were the filmmaker, but there's a collective of people that were involved.
Yeah, it's a collective of people, and like in part 3, we zoomed in on the Black Lives Matter movement, and because that's also part of the we, and I think the connection that we wanted to make is that not only is everything interconnected, but what happens to other people also concerns us. And I think that's why I often mention the we coming from a holistic perspective. Not that I want to say, oh, this is best for all of us, because it's impossible for me to say this. But I do think that thinking from a we perspective brings in more connections and holistic, deeper relationships.
That's very interesting. In that your new colleague Sharif Abdullah, he talks about the biggest shift that we need to make as a species is from me to we, and I think that's a very, very profound notion. I was attempting, however, to get you to describe the we in terms of the creation of that film, but I don't need to do that because we're going to be talking about some of these projects. We're going to talk about one of them anyway. And I want you to tell me a little bit about this HackHumanity project. Who's involved? What are you doing? Just say something. Tell the people what this is.
Yeah. And I think it was 5 years ago, 2018. We had a mini World Summit in Mexico. And the World Summit is a group on its own that wanted to bring together change makers. So I was representing United Earth at that moment, and I think there were 23 different groups, if I'm correct. Could have been 20 that came together there, and we wanted to elaborate with each other how we could support the process. And there were several interesting groups there present. Also, Indigenous Wisdom was there. It was a nice mix, but one of the groups was a group from Hungary, Envienta, and they had a concept. It was sort of a tech platform to open source everything. It's a group that wants to distribute open source solutions. So basically, not patent something to make a profit out of it, but if you have a good solution, a product, or something that can be manufactured that is helpful somewhere, and then they wanted to distribute this totally open sourced. And basically there was a click with the World Summit core group that remained there, and this Envienta group, and together we started this collaboration, and we founded HackHumanity. And in the first place, it was to show also that it is very good to see that groups are collaborating together, and to be an inspiration. But secondly, we wanted to use the wheel of co-creation of Barbara Marx Hubbard to organize hackathons in each sector, a specific hackathons. And a hackathon that's a bit of a techie cult term where you bring people together. That can be people that have new ideas, but also coders and programmers to build a tool together that can support the solution. So this is how it sort of was founded. And the last, it fell a bit stagnant about a year ago. But the last phase now is that there is a hub in Budapest, HackHumanity hub. There's a connection with the University of Budapest that is present there, and we're going to do workshops to show students what the alternatives are. There's lots more to say about it, but we want to give them, bring them, like I just said, more enrichment of alternatives, because a lot of students, they don't have any idea what to do with their lives at the moment after they graduate. And a lot of are very concerned, and a lot of are confused, like, okay, what now? So hopefully we can support that process. So far we had 2 hackathons, and it sort of correlates to where I am now currently at Liminal Village. We can maybe talk about it a bit more later. Yeah,
I think I was going to ask you.
Yeah, sort of a bridge where at Liminal Village, it's sort of I'm jumping a bit from one to the other. So if you want me to slow down, let me know.
No, it's fine. But I was going to ask you about Liminal Village. That was the next place I was going. So you can start talking about that.
Yeah,
because in a way, this podcast is a teaser. There's so many different things that Robert is involved in, and I guess to some extent I'm involved in. And you know, they would appreciate further exploration. So you're learning just really to some extent on the surface of what Robert's doing, the surface. And you know, I hope we invite you to look deeper and to collaborate with us. But anyway, tell us about Liminal Village.
Yeah, perfect. Yes, I think to start with, you know, a lot of groups are doing projects on a grassroots level, and that's really wonderful, because that's really where we can see manifesting things, new ways of growing, you know, crops or vegetables, or new technologies being implemented, new forms of self-governance also in local communities. I think that's very important. I also see that on this meta level, there are lots of people, groups, they are coming up with, they're networking, they're connecting and weaving, and they're coming up with meta level solutions. But I think in essence, it's very important that these two energies, they stay connected. They are connected with each other. So whatever we feel that can work on a meta level, I think it's important to connect that also to what's happening on the grassroots level, so we can learn from the feedback loops and from each other what works and what doesn't work. And I think here at Liminal Village, this is the main theme here. If you are here, it's a sort of an integral regeneration and permaculture center, ecotech hub in the midst of Italy. If you come here, you can do something personal for yourself, like your personal growth. You can do something local for the community, so you can maintain something or build something. And you can do something global, so you work on something that you feel is important on a global level. And I think in essence, the manifesting part is very important. And I felt it's almost 3 years ago that this project deserves support in a way. And because with all these different projects, which are all very fascinating and also very interesting and important, but they're all fragmented. And I felt, okay, if we want to make a start, why not build on something that has been founded already, and then see if we can get more traction, get it up to a higher operational professional level, so we can invite more change makers also over, more collective wisdom, and then you start sort of, you know, spiraling upwards, and getting traction towards more positive energy. So basically, that's what we are doing here. And here we are not talking about hackathons, but hackalongs. So a hackalong is just a lunar cycle for a month. And we have 4 phases in this month where we invite people that are also sometimes coders, but also change makers over to work on a specific project and bring it further. So that's a good way to support each other. So yeah, and I think the last year, the sort of the main core of Liminal Village, how it's founded, is shifting a bit towards a coordination and research center. So, and that we are able to upscale and get more people over here. At the moment, we are living here with 12 people from all different countries with different nationalities. It's really fascinating to live in the community, and sometimes very challenging, but very worthwhile and very rewarding. So we want to create more of these places where we can come together physically. Yeah.
So, sometimes, just speaking personally, it's like there's so much going on. I get confused. I don't know what to do. And maybe you're different than that. But I'm just wondering, I always want to ask people, and I'll ask you, what do you do to keep yourself grounded? How do you keep yourself are there practices that you do? Is there anything that you do to sort of just maintain peace? I'll call it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good question. I think I mostly focus on the positive and try to keep things in perspective. That's mainly how I keep myself grounded. And I sort of look, my window towards the world is if you can see the world like your computer screen or a big TV, and I will try to use this analogy. I feel that a lot of things that we see in the news, in the media, and on TV is just maybe 1 or 2 pixels of our screen that are enlarged. They are blown up, and it feels like we're looking towards the whole screen. The whole world is like this, but they're just a few pixels. And I think there are lots of other pixels there where people are doing amazing things. They're doing beautiful things for each other, projects, working on all kinds of wonderful social projects, and that's so. And I feel that's often a bit, we don't see this on the news, as because that really doesn't have a lot of interest, or it doesn't sell. So for me, I always keep this in perspective, that no, what we see is not only what is happening on what we see on the news. There are lots of positive and great things happening. And that keeps me sort of balanced and grounded, because I feel this enormous potential for us, that we are able to do so much better if we are, have the tools for it, but also maybe we can support each other reaching the consciousness to get there. Yeah.
So
and sometimes I just go to the beach, Angelo, and watch the waves, and or watch the sky and just reflect. I don't do a lot of meditating. I try to run twice a week for half an hour to keep in shape. But those are also reflection points for me. So, yeah.
So Robert has generously agreed to facilitate one of our online community explorations on January 20th, 2024. And Robert, I know we haven't talked about anything about what you would do, but I wonder if you have any ideas and what you would like people to get out of it. And I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of, I just alluded to the level of consciousness. So it would be great if we can go deeper into that, also go a little bit deeper, how we are able, with this huge potential, how we might be able to create this beautiful world together. Not only that, but I also feel a lot of energy in the 8 forms of capital. It's not something that's also not really visible at the moment, but I think beside fiat money, we have 7 other forms of capital that we are interacting with. And one of them is the spiritual capital, and another intellectual, and so on. I think it would be wonderful to make these energies visible, because we are already using them, but we are not acknowledging them really, because the only transaction way of or means that we know of is fiat money to exchange things and goods and services. But I really feel that Simona, yeah, I really feel that making these currencies, these forms of capital, these resources, we are using it already, but not fully to the potential that we can. So, and maybe that can be part of as a transition phase of hacking humanity. Because if we maybe put a little bit less emphasis on the fiat money part, we don't have to cut it or rule it out, but a little bit less attention to it and a little bit more to the other forms of capital, I think it will be helpful, hopefully, towards consciousness that we have so much happening and going on already.
Wow, wonderful. I will. I'm going to put. There's a lot of show notes I have to give all the different organizations, but one place you could start right now is you can go to HackHumanity.org. See a little bit about that project. There's also a nice project which I just joined, which is called Origin, which I'm sure is connected with Robert in some way.
Yeah, it is. That's Bruce Schumann. Origin is from Bruce Schumann. I think yeah. Sadly, he passed away. Quite recently, like
really?
1.5 years ago. Yes, but his work is really brilliant. He did great work for United Earth and World Summit to map all these different projects and groups, and so totally. And I think it's HackHumanity.net. Maybe
is
we
it net? Yes, I'm sorry. HackHumanity.net. Yes. So anyway, Robert, it's an enormous pleasure to talk with you. And as you know, you and I are in this for the duration. So we want you to join us, those of you that are listening, and also be in it for the duration, because this is a collective project and we all need your energy and love and support. Thanks again, Robert.
Thank you, Angelo. It was a great pleasure. And we'll talk soon. Thanks a lot. And much love.
Yeah, don't go away. We're just going to stop the recording.